If sarcasm burned calories, I'd be an underwear model by now. Instead, I'm Greg Fallon, 43 years old, sitting in my overpriced kitchen watching my wife Julia practice her concerned spouse routine in the mirror above our granite countertop. She's perfecting that little furrow between her eyebrows, the one that screams, devoted wife dealing with difficult husband, to anyone within a 50-foot radius. Greg, we need to talk about your mother's money, she says, turning from the mirror with that practiced expression locked in place. I think we should put it into our joint account, for transparency. I nearly choke on my coffee. Transparency. That's rich coming from someone who's been sneaking around with Dr. Eric Monroe for the past 6 months. Yeah, I know about that. Hard to miss when your wife suddenly develops a passionate interest in dental health conferences every weekend. Transparency, I repeat, setting down my mug. Like how transparent you've been about your business trips with Eric? Her face doesn't even twitch. Julia's got ice water in her veins when it comes to lying. It's almost impressive. Almost. I don't know what you're implying, but this is about our financial future. Your mother left you $1.5 million, Greg. That's our retirement, our security. Our security, right. Because the woman who spends $300 on a single dinner at that pretentious French place downtown is really worried about our financial stability. Julia makes 6 figures in marketing, but she burns through money like it's kindling. The money's going into a trust, I tell her. Irrevocable. Already scheduled the meeting with Rita Mendel for tomorrow. Now her mask slips. Just for a second, but I catch it. That flash of pure rage before she recomposes herself into the long-suffering wife again. You can't do that without discussing it with me first. I'm your wife, and I'm the beneficiary. Funny how that works. She slams her coffee mug down hard enough to crack the granite. If you do this, Greg, I'm leaving. I mean it. I won't stay married to someone who doesn't trust me. I look at her for a long moment, really look at her. The perfect blonde highlights that cost more than most people's car payments. The designer workout clothes she wears to sit around the house. The wedding ring she's been slipping off lately when she thinks I'm not watching. Leave then, I say quietly. The words hang in the air between us like a challenge. Julia's mouth opens and closes a few times, but no sound comes out. I think she expected me to fold, to beg her to stay, to hand over my mother's legacy just to keep the peace. Instead, I stand up, rinse my mug in the sink, and head for the door. I've got a meeting with my lawyer in an hour. We'll talk when I get back. But we both know we won't. Not really. The lines are drawn now, and Julia's already choosing her side. Rita Mendel's office smells like leather and old money, which is probably the point. She's been the family lawyer since before I was born, handled my parents' wills, and now she's about to make sure Julia never gets her perfectly manicured hands on my inheritance. Irrevocable trust, Rita says, sliding the papers across her mahogany desk. Once you sign this, the money is locked up tight. You can access the interest, but the principal stays put. And your wife? She smiles like a shark. Your wife gets exactly nothing unless you specifically provide for her. Which I won't be doing. Smart man. I've seen too many good people get cleaned out by spouses with expensive tastes and flexible morals. I sign my name with a flourish. Each letter feels like a small victory. When I get home, Julia's sister Tessa is there. Of course she is. Tessa's a nurse, which makes her Julia's go-to enabler for all things medical and dramatic. She's got that same ice blonde hair as Julia, but without the polish. More like a discount version of my wife. Greg! Tessa jumps up from the couch like I've caught her doing something wrong. Julia told me about your situation. Are you feeling okay? You look tired. I do feel tired, actually. Have for the past few weeks. But I'm not about to discuss my health with someone whose medical advice probably comes from WebMD and wine. I'm fine, Tessa, just dealing with some family business. Julia appears from the kitchen, and I can tell she's been crying. Real tears this time, not the crocodile variety she usually favors. Did you really do it? The trust? Signed and sealed. She crumples into the nearest chair like I've physically struck her. How could you do this to us? There is no us, Julia. There's me, and there's you, and there's Dr. Monroe, but there's no us. Tessa gasps like this is breaking news, but I see the look that passes between the sisters. They both knew I knew. This whole conversation is just theater. I think you should see someone, Tessa says suddenly. About your paranoia. These accusations about Eric, this obsession with the money, it's not healthy, Greg. You know what's not healthy? Having a wife who thinks I'm too stupid to notice when she's screwing around. Greg, Julia's voice cracks with what might actually be genuine emotion. How can you say that? Because it's true, and because I'm done pretending it's not. The next few days pass in a cold war of silence and slammed doors. Julia's barely speaking to me, which is actually an improvement. When she does talk, it's in that wounded, martyred tone she uses when she wants people to feel sorry for her. I'm not sleeping well. Every morning feels like I'm climbing out of quicksand, and my stomach's been churning like a cement mixer. Stress, probably. Divorce will do that to a person. Julia's being extra solicitous about my health, though, bringing me coffee in bed, making sure I eat breakfast, asking if I need anything. It would be sweet if it weren't so completely out of character. You really don't look well, she says, setting down a plate of eggs Benedict that probably cost $40 to make. Maybe you should see Dr. Patterson. Dr. Patterson is our family physician and also one of Julia's tennis partners. I'm sure she'd love nothing more than to have him declare me mentally unfit. I'm fine, I tell her, but the eggs taste weird, metallic, like I'm sucking on pennies. Are you sure? You've been acting so strange lately. The paranoia about Eric, the money obsession. She sits down across from me, all concern and furrowed brows. I'm worried about you. Right, she's worried about me the same way a shark worries about an injured swimmer. But I eat the eggs anyway because I'm hungry and because fighting takes energy I don't seem to have anymore. Everything tastes like metal and sadness. That night I wake up feeling like someone's filled my veins with concrete. The room spins when I try to sit up, and there's a taste in my mouth like I've been licking batteries. Julia, I call out, but my voice sounds weird, slurred. She appears in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light, and for a second she looks almost ghostly. What's wrong? I don't feel right. Something's wrong. She moves closer and I can see her face now. She looks concerned, but there's something else there. Something that might be satisfaction. Should I call an ambulance? The question hangs in the air, and I realize with crystal clarity that this is not a concerned wife asking if her husband needs help. This is someone who's already made up her mind about what happens next. Yes, I manage to whisper because what else can I say? But as the room starts to fade around the edges, I hear her on the phone with emergency and her voice is different, panicked, theatrical. My husband is having some kind of breakdown, she's saying. He's been acting paranoid, obsessing over money, making wild accusations. I think he might have taken something. Please hurry. The last thing I see before everything goes black is Julia standing in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear, and that look on her face isn't concern at all. It's relief. I wake up in a room that smells like disinfectant and broken dreams. The walls are that particular shade of institutional beige that screams abandon hope, all ye who enter here. And there are bars on the windows. Not the decorative kind either. A nurse with kind eyes and a tired smile checks my blood pressure while I try to figure out where the heck I am. How are you feeling, Mr. Fallon? Like I've been hit by a truck full of tranquilizers. Where am I? Riverside Mental Health Facility. You were brought in last night after a psychiatric emergency. Your wife was very concerned. Of course she was. St. Julia, worried sick about her unstable husband. I bet she even managed to squeeze out a few tears for the EMTs. I need to make a phone call. I'm sorry, but you're on a 72-hour hold. No phone privileges until Dr. Brennan evaluates you. Perfect. Locked up without communication, while Julia's probably at home redecorating my office into a yoga studio. The next few hours crawl by like wounded animals. I'm not allowed visitors, phone calls, or apparently any information about why I'm here beyond psychiatric emergency. The staff treats me like I'm made of glass and dynamite, all gentle voices and careful movements. Dr. Brennan turns out to be a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the bedside manner of a funeral director. He sits across from me in what I'm sure is supposed to be a calming office space, complete with inspirational posters and a box of tissues strategically placed within reach. Your wife is very concerned about your recent behavior, he begins, flipping through a file that's surprisingly thick for someone who's been here less than 24 hours. Paranoid delusions, financial obsessions, accusations of infidelity without basis. Without basis? I lean forward. Did she show you photos of her hotel receipts? Because I've got plenty. He makes a note, probably something about persistent delusions or inability to accept reality. Mr. Fallon, your wife mentioned you've been making wild claims about her relationship with Adora Monroe. She's provided character references from several mutual friends who can attest to the baseless nature of these accusations. Character references. Julia's really gone all out. I wonder how much it cost her to get her tennis buddies to lie for her. I want a lawyer. This isn't a criminal matter, Mr. Fallon. This is about getting you the help you need. Right, the help I need, like a hole in the head. The door opens and Julia walks in, playing the part of the devoted wife to perfection. Her eyes are red-rimmed like she's been crying, and she's dressed down in jeans and a simple sweater. The grieving spouse, worried sick about her troubled husband. "Oh, Greg," she says, and her voice actually breaks a little. "I'm so glad you're okay. When I found you last night talking about conspiracies and saying such terrible things..." She's good, really good. If I didn't know better, I'd almost believe her myself. "How are you feeling?" she continues, reaching for my hand. I pull away and Dr. Brennan makes another note. "I'm feeling like I've been set up." Julia's face crumples. "Oh, honey, this is exactly what I was talking about. The paranoia, the accusations." She turns to Dr. Brennan. "He's been like this for weeks, ever since his mother died and left him the money. It's like he doesn't trust anyone anymore." "That's interesting," Dr. Brennan says, scribbling away. "Sudden wealth can sometimes trigger psychological episodes, especially when combined with grief." They talk about me like I'm not in the room. Julia provides a detailed history of my declining mental state, complete with dates and specific incidents. She's thorough, I'll give her that. Every conversation we've had about the inheritance is twisted into evidence of my instability. "He accused me of having an affair with our dentist," she tells Dr. Brennan with a shaky laugh. "Eric Monroe. We've been friends for years, but Greg became convinced we were together. He even followed us to a dental conference in Hartford." A dental conference. Right, is that what they're calling it now? "I have photos," I say. "Photos of what, Greg?" Julia's voice is so gentle, so patient. "Photos of me having dinner with a colleague. Photos of us talking at a professional event." She's right, of course. The photos I have show them together, but nothing explicitly intimate. Nothing that couldn't be explained away as professional or friendship. Julia's too smart to get caught in bed with her boyfriend. She's always been careful about appearances. Dr. Brennan closes the file. "Mr. Fallon, I think it would be beneficial for you to stay with us for a few more days. Get some rest. Let us run some tests, make sure there's nothing medical causing these episodes." "I don't want to stay here. I understand, but your wife is concerned about your safety. And frankly, so am I." Julia squeezes my shoulder. "It's just for a few days, honey. Just until you're feeling better." As she leans down to kiss my forehead, she whispers something only I can hear. "Smile for the cameras, Greg. You're giving the performance of a lifetime." That's when I know for certain this isn't about my mental health. This is about the money. And Julia's playing a much deeper game than I realized. After she leaves, I lie on the narrow hospital bed and stare at the ceiling. The medication they've given me makes everything feel fuzzy around the edges. But my mind is crystal clear about one thing. I've been played. Julia didn't just decide to leave me for Eric. She decided to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could get her hands on the inheritance. The timing of my breakdown is too convenient, too perfectly orchestrated. I think about those breakfasts she made me, the way the food tasted metallic, the concerned questions about my health, the suggestions to see Dr. Patterson. She's been building a case against me for weeks, maybe months. But Julia made one mistake. She assumed I'd be as easy to manipulate as everyone else in her life. She assumed I'd go quietly. She assumed wrong. The next morning, I get a visitor I wasn't expecting. Walter Fallon, my father, stands in the doorway looking like he could chew nails and spit bullets. At 67, he's still built like the cop he used to be, all shoulders and attitude. "What the heck is going on, son?" "Dad?" I sit up, suddenly more awake than I've been since I got here. "How did you find me? Your wife called yesterday, crying about how you'd had some kind of breakdown. Said you were in the hospital, but couldn't have visitors. Took me 6 hours and 3 phone calls to track down which hospital." His eyes narrow. "Funny thing, though. When I called Julia back to get more details, she seemed real surprised I'd found you." That's my dad. 30 years on the force, Teaches you to spot a lie from 3 counties away. She sedated me, I tell him quietly. I think she's been poisoning me for weeks, building up to this. She wants me declared incompetent so she can get control of Mom's inheritance. Walter sits down heavily in the visitor's chair. Tell me everything. So I do, the affair with Eric, the demand for access to the inheritance, the trust I set up, and the gradual deterioration of my health leading up to that final breakfast. Walter listens without interruption, his face getting darker with every detail. That manipulative little... He catches himself. Son, we need to get you out of here. Today. They've got me on a 72-hour hold. Not anymore, they don't. I called in some favors, had a friend of mine look into your admission. Turns out your lab tests show some interesting anomalies. Traces of sedatives that don't match anything they've given you here. Hope flickers in my chest for the first time in days. You mean... I mean someone's been slipping you Mickey fins, and it wasn't the hospital staff. Walter stands up. I'm getting you discharged. Today. And then we're going to have a little conversation with your wife. 2 hours later, I'm walking out of Riverside Mental Health Facility with my father beside me and a copy of my lab results in my pocket. The tests show traces of benzodiazepines and other sedatives administered over what the lab estimates to be several weeks. Julia's been sedating me, slowly, carefully, building up evidence of my instability while systematically poisoning me. It's diabolical. It's also exactly the kind of long-term planning she's always been good at. Where to now? Walter asks as we get in his truck. Rita Mendel's office. If Julia thinks she can get her hands on Mom's money by having me declared incompetent, she's got another think coming. But as we drive through downtown, I can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning. Julia's not the type to give up easily, and she's already shown she's willing to go to extreme lengths to get what she wants. The war is just getting started. Rita Mendel takes one look at the hospital discharge papers and lab work results, and her expression shifts from professional concern to predatory satisfaction. Well, she says, settling back in her leather chair, this is interesting. Interesting is one word for it, I mutter. I was thinking more along the lines of attempted homicide. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. What we have here is evidence of systematic sedating, which could support charges of assault or attempted poisoning. But we need more if we want to build a solid case. Walter leans forward. What kind of more? Evidence of premeditation, documentation of motive, proof that Julia was the one administering the pills. Rita taps her pen against the desk. Right now, all we can prove is that Greg was being sedated. We need to prove who was doing it and why. She's right, of course. Julia's too smart to leave obvious fingerprints on her scheme. But she's also arrogant, and arrogant people make mistakes. I need to get back into the house, I tell them. Julia thinks I'm safely locked up for the next few days. She might have gotten careless. Absolutely not, Walter says immediately. You go back there, she'll know something's up. Might even try to finish what she started. Then what do you suggest? Rita opens her laptop. We investigate, quietly, carefully, and we document everything. She turns the screen toward us. I've already started. Julia's been busy while you were in the hospital. She's contacted 3 different lawyers about having you declared mentally incompetent. The screen shows email records, phone logs, and what looks like a preliminary conservatorship filing. Julia hasn't wasted any time. She's also been in touch with Dr. Patterson about getting a psychiatric evaluation to support her case, Rita continues. And she's scheduled meetings with 2 financial advisors about managing her husband's assets during his recovery. My stomach churns, and not just from the lingering effects of whatever Julia was feeding me. She's moving fast. She has to. The 72-hour hold was her window of opportunity. Once you were released, she'd have to explain why she couldn't wait for you to get better before trying to take control of your finances. Walter stands up and starts pacing. So what's our next move? Surveillance, Rita says. We need to know who she's meeting with, what she's planning, and most importantly, we need to catch her in a lie. Or better yet, catch her admitting what she's done. I know someone who can help with that, Walter says. Tommy Chen, retired detective, runs a private investigation firm now. Owes me a favor from way back. No, I say quickly. No outside investigators. This stays between us. Rita raises an eyebrow. Greg, we're lawyers, not spies. We need professional help. What we need is to be smart about this. Julia's got friends everywhere, and this town's too small to trust that word won't get back to her. I think for a moment. But I've got an idea. My best friend Mike Rodriguez has been installing security systems for 20 years. More importantly, he's been suspicious of Julia since day one. She's got dead eyes, he told me once, like a shark in a cocktail dress. I call him from Rita's office, putting the phone on speaker. Greg, man, I heard you were in the hospital. Julia said you had some kind of breakdown? Something like that. Listen, I need a favor, a big one. Name it. I need surveillance equipment. Cameras, audio recording, the works, and I need it installed without Julia knowing about it. There's a pause. You want to spy on your wife? I want to catch my wife trying to steal my inheritance after she spent 3 weeks poisoning me. Another pause, longer this time. I'll be there in an hour. While we wait for Mike, Rita walks me through the legal implications of what we're planning. Audio recording without consent is tricky in Massachusetts, she warns. We need to be careful about how we gather evidence. What about in my own house? That's different. You have a right to record conversations in your own home, especially if you're a participant in those conversations. Walter nods approvingly. Good, because I've got a feeling Julia's going to want to have a long conversation with Greg when she finds out he's been released. Mike arrives with a van full of equipment and a grim expression. I never liked that woman, he says by way of greeting. Too polished, too perfect. Real people have flaws. He spends the next hour explaining the surveillance setup. Tiny cameras that look like smoke detectors, audio pickups that can be hidden in light fixtures, and a recording system that will capture everything and upload it to a secure server. The beauty of this system, Mike explains, is that it's completely passive. Once it's installed, you don't have to do anything. It just records everything that happens in the house. What about Julia's privacy? Mike gives me a look. Greg, she tried to have you committed so she could steal your money. I think her privacy rights took a backseat to your survival instincts. Fair point. We spend the rest of the afternoon planning the installation. Julia thinks I'm still locked up, which gives us a window of opportunity. Walter will keep watch while Mike and I get the equipment in place. What if she comes home early? Walter asks. Then we abort and try again tomorrow, I tell him. But Julia's predictable. She'll be at work until 6, then she'll probably go to dinner with Tessa to plan her next move. We've got time. At 4 o'clock, we head to the house. It feels strange sneaking into my own home like a burglar. But then, I remember waking up in that hospital room, and the feeling passes. Mike works quickly and efficiently, installing cameras in the living room, kitchen, and Julia's home office. The audio pickups go in the main gathering areas, and the recording system gets hidden in the basement behind the water heater. She'll never find it, Mike assures me. And even if she does, it'll just look like part of the HVAC system. By 5:30, we're done. The house looks exactly the same, but now every conversation, every phone call, every meeting will be recorded and preserved. Now what? Walter asks as we pack up the equipment. Now we wait, I tell him, and we let Julia hang herself with her own rope. But I don't have to wait long. My phone buzzes with a text message from Julia. Heard you were released. We need to talk. I'll be home at 7. I show the message to Walter and Mike. Showtime, Mike says. You sure you're up for this? Walter asks. You've been through heck the past few days. I'm sure, and I am. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I feel like I'm back in control. Julia thinks she's playing chess while I'm playing checkers. Time to show her how wrong she is. At 6:45, I'm sitting in my living room when Julia's car pulls into the driveway. Through the window, I watch her sit in the car for a few minutes, probably psyching herself up for whatever performance she's about to give. When she finally comes in, she's got her concerned wife mask firmly in place. Greg, thank God you're home. When the hospital called and said you'd been discharged, I was so worried. Are you feeling better? Much better, thanks. Amazing what a little clarity can do. She sits down across from me, and I can practically see the wheels turning in her head. This isn't going according to her script. I've been thinking about what happened, she says carefully. About the things you said, the accusations you made. I know you weren't feeling well, but Greg, we need to address this. Address what exactly? The paranoia, the delusions about Eric and me, the obsession with your mother's money. She leans forward, all concern and compassion. I think you need help. Professional help. You mean like Dr. Patterson? I heard you've been talking to him about me. Her face doesn't change, but I catch a flicker of something in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. I was worried about you. I wanted a professional opinion about what might be causing these episodes. Episodes. I lean back in my chair. Is that what we're calling attempted homicide now? Greg, please, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. The mask slips just for a second, just long enough for me to see the real Julia underneath. The cold, calculating woman who spent weeks poisoning her husband so she could steal his inheritance. I don't know what you think you know, she says quietly, but you're wrong. Am I? Then you won't mind if I have the breakfast dishes from yesterday morning tested for pills residue. She goes very still. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the benzodiazepines in my lab results, Julia. I'm talking about the systematic sedating that's been going on for weeks. I'm talking about your plan to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could get your hands on my mother's money. For a long moment, we just stare at each other. Then Julia starts to laugh. It's not a pleasant sound. You can't prove anything, she says. And even if you could, who's going to believe you? The man who just spent 3 days in a mental hospital? We'll see about that. She stands up, smoothing down her skirt. I'm going to stay at Tessa's tonight. I think we both need some space to think about where we go from here. Good idea. Give my regards to Eric. She pauses at the door. There is no Eric, Greg. There never was. That's all in your head. After she leaves, I sit in the quiet house and smile, because everything we just said to each other is now recorded and stored on Mike's secure server, including her admission that she can't prove she wasn't sedating me. It's not a confession, but it's a start. And Julia's made one critical mistake. She thinks this is still her game to control. Tomorrow, I'm going to start showing her just how wrong she is. The next morning brings a surprise I wasn't expecting. There's a process server at my door at 8 a.m., looking apologetic but determined. Gregory Fallon, you're being served with an emergency petition for conservatorship. You have 48 hours to respond. I take the papers with hands that are steadier than they have any right to be. Julia's not wasting time. She's going for the nuclear option. The petition is a masterpiece of creative writing. According to Julia's lawyer, Mark Klein, I'm a danger to myself and others, suffering from paranoid delusions and financial obsession brought on by sudden wealth syndrome and unresolved grief. She's requesting immediate control of all my assets pending a psychiatric evaluation. She's also claiming I threatened her last night. Defendant made statements indicating he might harm petitioner if she didn't comply with his demands regarding marital assets. Creative interpretation of our conversation, but not entirely unexpected. Julia's always been good at twisting words. I call Rita immediately. Emergency conservatorship petition. Can she actually pull this off? Not if we're prepared. And thanks to last night's recording, we are. Can you be here in an hour? On my way. Rita's office is buzzing with activity when I arrive. She's got law clerks pulling case files and a court reporter setting up equipment. We're going nuclear, she announces. Julia wants to play dirty? Let's show her what dirty really looks like. She slides a thick folder across the desk. Your wife's been busy. In addition to the conservatorship petition, she's filed for emergency spousal support, claiming she's been financially cut off and fears for her safety. Safety? I never touched her. No. But you did threaten to expose her affair with Dr. Monroe. According to her petition, this constitutes emotional misuse and harassment. I flipped through the documents, my anger building with each page. Julia's painted herself as the victim of an increasingly unstable husband who's become obsessed with money and conspiracy theories. There's more, Rita continues. She's also filed a restraining order request, claiming you've been stalking her and making threatening phone calls. That's complete BS. Of course it is, but it's well-documented BS, which makes it dangerous. Rita opens her laptop. However, we've got something she doesn't know about. The screen shows a transcript of last night's conversation, complete with timestamps and audio analysis. Julia's words are right there in black and white. You can't prove anything, and even if you could, who's going to believe you? That's not a confession, I point out. No, but it's an admission that there's something to prove. Combined with your lab results and the hospital records, it establishes a pattern of deception. Rita scrolls down to another section. But this is the really interesting part. The transcript shows a phone call Julia made after she left the house. She called someone, the number traces back to Eric Monroe, and had a very revealing conversation. We need to accelerate the timeline, Julia's voice says on the recording. He's more suspicious than I thought. Can you get the psychiatric evaluation moved up? Eric's response is equally damning. I've already talked to Patterson. He'll support the conservatorship if we can get Greg in for an evaluation. But we need to be careful. If anyone finds out about us, no one's going to find out. Greg's been declared mentally unstable. Who's going to believe him? Rita stops the playback. That's conspiracy to commit fraud, at minimum. Possibly attempted theft and conspiracy to commit perjury. For the first time since this nightmare started, I feel like we might actually win. What's our next move? We file a counter petition. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted theft, assault by poisoning. We're going to bury them in so much legal paperwork, they'll need a roadmap to find their way out. The rest of the morning is spent preparing our response. Rita's team works with military precision, assembling evidence, preparing witness statements, and building a case that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. At noon, my phone rings. It's Julia, and she sounds different, harder. Greg, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say. You don't understand. I'm trying to help you. This conservatorship thing, it's for your own good. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. Meet me for lunch. Neutral ground, 1 hour. I look at Rita, who nods. Do it, she mouths. But wear a wire. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in Mike's van while he tapes a recording device to my chest. This thing will pick up everything within 10 feet, he explains. Just act natural. Natural, right, because having lunch with my wife who tried to poison me is totally natural. Walter claps me on the shoulder. You've got this, son. Just remember, she's the one who's desperate now. Let her talk. The restaurant Julia chose is one of those upscale places where the portions are tiny and the prices are astronomical. She's already there when I arrive, sitting at a corner table where we won't be overheard. She looks different, tired. The perfect makeup can't quite hide the stress lines around her eyes. Thank you for coming, she says as I sit down. Let's skip the pleasantries, Julia. What do you want? I want to make a deal. That gets my attention. What kind of deal? Drop the opposition to the conservatorship. Let me manage the inheritance until you're feeling better. In return, I'll drop the restraining order request. And why would I do that? She leans forward, lowering her voice. Because if you don't, this gets ugly, really ugly. I've got 3 witnesses who will testify about your increasingly erratic behavior. I've got medical records showing pills use. I've got documentation of your threats and paranoid accusations. Interesting. What you don't have is any actual evidence that I'm mentally incompetent. I don't need evidence, Greg. I just need reasonable doubt. And a grieving widow is a lot more sympathetic than a paranoid husband with a pills problem. Grieving widow? I'm not dead yet, Julia. No, she says quietly, but your reputation is about to be. The threat hangs in the air between us like smoke. Julia's not just playing for the money anymore, and she's playing for total destruction. You know what I find interesting, I say, cutting into my overpriced salmon? Dr. Monroe seems to know an awful lot about psychiatric evaluations for a dentist. Julia's fork freezes halfway to her mouth. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Eric's been very helpful in planning your little scheme, almost like he's got a personal stake in the outcome. There is no scheme, Greg. There's just a sick man who needs help. Then you won't mind if I have a conversation with Eric's wife about his recent activities. Now Julia goes completely still. You stay away from Sarah Monroe. Why? Afraid she might have some interesting insights about her husband's relationship with you? Julia sets down her fork and looks at me with pure hatred. You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember, I know things about you, too. Things that might interest the police. Such as your little visit to my office last week. The security cameras caught you going through my desk. That's breaking and entering, Greg. Felony charges. She's bluffing. Has to be. I was never in her office last week. I was in the hospital. But the confidence in her voice makes me wonder what other surprises she's prepared. This conversation is over, I tell her, standing up. 48 hours, Greg. That's how long you have to decide. Make the smart choice. As I walk out of the restaurant, I can feel her watching me. Julia's not just desperate anymore. She's dangerous. And I'm starting to realize that this war is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Back at Rita's office, we listen to the recording of lunch. Julia's threats are clear, her desperation obvious. But she's also revealed something important. She's got contingency plans. The security camera thing is BS, Rita says. But it shows she's thinking ahead. We need to assume she's got other surprises waiting. What about going after Eric directly, I ask. If we can get him to flip, worth a try. But we need to be careful. If he lawyers up, this gets a lot more complicated. Walter has been quiet through most of the discussion, but now he speaks up. What if we don't go after Eric legally? What if we go after him personally? What do you mean? I mean, Dr. Monroe's got a reputation to protect. A dental practice, a wife, a position in the community. Walter's smile is not pleasant. Might be interesting to see how he handles a little public scrutiny. Rita shakes her head. We can't harass him. That's exactly the kind of thing Julia's hoping we'll do. Who said anything about harassment? I'm talking about transparency, public records, professional licensing boards. Walter's cop instincts are kicking in. Men like Monroe, they're used to operating in the shadows. Turn on the lights and they scatter like cockroaches. It's not a bad idea, but it's also risky. If we push too hard and Eric lawyers up, we could lose our best chance at getting him to testify. Well, let me think about it, Rita says. In the meantime, we need to focus on the conservatorship hearing. That's in 36 hours, and it's our best chance to stop this thing before it gets out of control. As we're wrapping up the meeting, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I show it to Walter, whose expression darkens. That's not Julia's style. No! I agree. That's Eric getting nervous. Good, Rita says. Nervous people make mistakes, and we're going to be ready when he does. But as we leave the office, I can't shake the feeling that we're missing something. Julia's too confident, too prepared. She's got something else up her sleeve, and I'm not going to like it when I find out what it is. The war is escalating, and I have a feeling the worst is yet to come. The next morning brings another surprise visitor, but this one I'm actually happy to see. My father stands on the doorstep holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing his "let's get down to business" expression. Time to go on the offensive, he announces, pushing past me into the house. I've been doing some digging on your wife's boyfriend. We sit in the kitchen while Walter spreads out a folder full of documents. Dr. Eric Monroe, age 41, graduated from Tufts Dental School, married to Sarah Monroe for 15 years, 2 kids. I know all that, Dad. You know the public stuff. You don't know about the 3 malpractice suits that were settled out of court, or the complaint filed with the state dental board about inappropriate conduct with female patients. That gets my attention. Inappropriate how? Overly familiar behavior? Unnecessary physical contact? Making personal comments about patients' appearances? Nothing that stuck, but there's a pattern. Walter flips to another page. There's also some interesting financial information. Monroe's been living way above his means. The dental practice is profitable, but not white Porsche and country club membership profitable. So he's got money problems. Big ones. He owes $200,000 on credit cards. His mortgage is underwater, and he's been borrowing against his practice to maintain his lifestyle. The pieces start falling into place. Eric isn't just sleeping with Julia for fun. He needs her money as much as she wants mine. There's more, Walter continues. I had a conversation with one of Eric's former dental hygienists. Seems the good doctor has a thing for wealthy married women. Julia's not his first affair with a patient. Can we prove that? Working on it. But the hygienist was very chatty once I explained that Eric might be involved in a scheme to defraud a vulnerable patient. My phone rings. It's Rita, and she sounds excited. Greg, you need to get down here right now. We just got a break. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in Rita's office staring at a stack of financial records that make my head spin. Julia's been busy, Rita explains. In the past 6 months, she's taken out 3 personal loans totaling $50,000. She's also maxed out 4 credit cards and borrowed against her 401k. What's she spending money on? That's the interesting part. Most of it's going to a private investigator named Danny Walsh. He's been conducting what Julia calls research on your mental state and financial competency. The picture gets clearer and uglier. Julia hasn't just been planning to steal my inheritance. She's been building a case against me for months. Walsh specializes in matrimonial investigations, Rita continues. Background checks, financial analysis, and psychological profiling. He's the guy wealthy spouses hire when they want to destroy their partners in divorce court. So this was never about my mental health. It was always about the money. Gets better. Walsh has been coordinating with Eric Monroe and Dr. Patterson to build a medical case for your incompetency. They've been planning this since before your mother died. The betrayal hits me like a physical blow. Julia didn't just decide to steal from me after I inherited the money. She's been planning to destroy me since she found out the inheritance was coming. How do we prove it? Rita smiles like a shark. Walsh made a mistake. He's been using his business email account to coordinate with Julia and Eric, and thanks to a very cooperative former employee who got stiffed on his last paycheck, we now have access to 6 months of correspondence. She turns her laptop around and I start reading. The emails are damning. Julia, Eric, and Walsh discussing strategies for having me declared incompetent. Dr. Patterson providing medical opinions based on secondhand information from Julia. Even discussions about how to handle the pills problem they were going to create. This is conspiracy to commit fraud on a massive scale, I say. Among other things, we're talking RICO charges if the DA wants to get creative. For the first time since this nightmare started, I feel like we're winning. But Rita's expression tells me there's more. What else? Julia filed an amended petition this morning. She's now claiming you physically threatened her and that she fears for her safety. She's requesting an emergency restraining order and immediate protective custody of all marital assets. Protective custody means the court takes control of everything until the competency hearing. House, cars, bank accounts, investment portfolios, everything gets frozen. The victory feeling evaporates. Can she do that? If the judge believes her, yes. And Julia's got 3 witnesses who will testify they've seen you acting erratically and making threats. What witnesses? Her sister Tessa, Dr. Patterson, and interestingly enough, Danny Walsh himself. Of course. Julia's private investigator is now going to testify as a witness to my instability, the same man she's been paying to build a case against me. When's the hearing? Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. I lean back in my chair, trying to process everything. Julia's not just trying to steal my money. She's trying to destroy my entire life. And she's been planning it for months with the help of her lover, her sister, and a corrupt private investigator. What do we need to do? We need to get ahead of this. File criminal charges against all of them before they can spin this as a domestic dispute. Can we do that? With the evidence we have? Absolutely. But we need to move fast. The next few hours are a blur of activity. Rita and her team prepare criminal complaints while Walter and I gather additional evidence. Mike installs more surveillance equipment, this time in my car and office. By evening, we're as ready as we can be. But I can't shake the feeling that Julia's still got surprises waiting. That feeling proves correct when my doorbell rings at 9 p.m. It's not Julia this time. It's 2 police officers, and they don't look friendly. Gregory Fallon, you're under arrest for making terroristic threats in violation of a restraining order. What restraining order? The one issued this afternoon prohibiting you from contacting or approaching Julia Fallon. I look at the paperwork they hand me. It's an emergency restraining order, signed by a judge I've never heard of, based on Julia's sworn statement that I threatened to end her if she didn't drop the conservatorship petition. I never threatened to end anyone. Tell it to the judge tomorrow morning. As they put the handcuffs on, I see Julia's car parked across the street. She's sitting behind the wheel, watching. Even from a distance, I can see her smile. She's played me again. While I was preparing for the conservatorship hearing, she was setting up a criminal case that makes me look like a dangerous stalker. As the police car pulls away from my house, I realize this war just escalated beyond anything I imagined. Julia's not just trying to steal from me anymore. She's trying to put me in prison. The holding cell smells like disinfectant and despair, but at least it's given me time to think. Julia's move was brilliant in its simplicity. Get me arrested on domestic violence charges the night before the conservatorship hearing. Even if I make bail, I'll look like exactly the kind of unstable, dangerous person who shouldn't have control of a significant inheritance. But Julia made one critical error. She assumed I'd be as unprepared for her escalation as I was for everything else. She assumed wrong. At 6 a.m., Rita arrives with bail paperwork and a grim smile. You're out, she says, but we've got problems. How bad? The restraining order is legitimate. Julia convinced Judge Morrison that you're a clear and present danger. The conservatorship hearing has been moved up to this afternoon, and now it's combined with a domestic violence evaluation. As we walk out of the courthouse, Rita fills me in on the night's developments. Julia's team worked overtime to paint me as an increasingly violent husband who's become obsessed with money and conspiracy theories. They've got Dr. Patterson ready to testify about your deteriorating mental state, Rita explains, Tessa's going to talk about your threatening behavior toward Julia, and Danny Walsh is going to present his investigation into your psychological profile. What about our evidence? That's the good news. The DA's office is very interested in our fraud case. They're opening a criminal investigation into Julia, Eric, and Walsh. But criminal investigations take time. The conservatorship hearing is today. If Julia gets control of your assets, she can drain everything before the criminal case even gets to trial. We drive to Rita's office in silence. I'm trying to process the fact that in a few hours, a judge is going to decide whether I'm competent to control my own life. And Julia's team has had months to prepare while I've had 3 days. At the office, Rita's team is in full crisis mode. Law clerks are printing evidence, paralegals are preparing witness statements, and Rita's partner is on the phone with someone at the state attorney general's office. Change of strategy, Rita announces. We're not just defending against the conservatorship, we're going nuclear. She slides a thick folder across the desk. Emergency motion to dismiss all charges, counter petition for fraud and conspiracy, and a request for immediate seizure of Julia's assets pending criminal investigation. Can we do that? We're about to find out. The next few hours pass in a blur of legal preparation. Rita's team works with military precision, assembling a case that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. But I can't shake the feeling that we're still missing something. That feeling proves correct when my phone rings at 11 a.m. It's an unknown number, but I recognize the voice immediately. Greg, this is Sarah Monroe, Eric's wife. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop downtown, across from a woman who looks like she hasn't slept in days. Sarah Monroe is nothing like I expected. Where Julia is polished and calculating, Sarah is genuine and direct. I know about the affair, she says without preamble. I've known for months. Why are you telling me this? Because Eric came home last night in a panic. He's been getting phone calls from lawyers, and he's terrified he's going to be charged with fraud. Sarah takes a shaky sip of her coffee. He told me everything. Everything turns out to be worse than I imagined. Eric and Julia have been planning this for over a year, since before my mother was even diagnosed with cancer. They knew about the inheritance and started laying groundwork to steal it before I even knew I was going to inherit anything. Julia approached Eric at a dental conference, Sarah explains. She told him she was trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who was about to inherit a fortune. She convinced him to help her get rid of you. Get rid of me how? At first, it was just the affair. Julia thought she could get you to file for divorce, then take half of everything in the settlement. Sarah's voice gets quieter. But when you set up that trust, she panicked. That's when they came up with the incompetency plan. The pieces fall into place with sickening clarity. Julia didn't just decide to have me declared mentally incompetent. She's been working toward that goal for months, systematically building a case while slowly poisoning me to create the symptoms she needed. There's more, Sarah continues. Eric's been recording their conversations. He was afraid Julia might try to pin everything on him if they got caught. She slides a small digital recorder across the table. This is from 2 nights ago, after you got out of the hospital. I plug in earbuds and listen. Julia's voice is clear and cold. The hospital thing was supposed to buy us more time, but Greg's more suspicious than I thought. We need to accelerate everything. Eric's response is panicked. What if he figures out what we've been doing? What if he has evidence? He doesn't have anything. And even if he did, who's going to believe a man who's been in a psychiatric hospital? But what if... Eric, listen to me. We've come too far to back out now. The money is worth $1.5 million. That's enough to solve all your financial problems and set us both up for life. But we have to see this through. What about the pills thing? What if they test the food? They can't test what's been thrown away. And I've been careful. Small doses, nothing that would show up in a standard tox screen unless someone was specifically looking for it. It's a full confession, recorded by her own co-conspirator. Julia admitting to poisoning me, admitting to the conspiracy, admitting that the entire thing was premeditated. Why are you giving this to me? I asked Sarah. Because I'm not going to let my husband destroy 2 families for money. Her voice is steady, but I can see tears in her eyes. Eric's made his choices, but I won't be part of this. I take the recorder and Sarah's contact information. As she's leaving, she turns back. There's one more thing. Julia's planning something for today. Eric wouldn't tell me what, but he's been making phone calls to someone named Walsh about the final phase. The final phase. Whatever Julia's got planned, it's happening at the conservatorship hearing. I call Rita immediately. We need to meet, right now. And we need to get this recording to the DA's office before the hearing. What recording? The one where Julia confesses to everything. 2 hours later, we're sitting in the courthouse waiting room with a team of prosecutors, FBI agents, and what looks like half the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. The recording has changed everything. We're moving forward with criminal charges, the lead prosecutor explains. Conspiracy to commit fraud, assault by poisoning, perjury, and about 6 other felonies. But we need to coordinate with the civil hearing. Rita nods. Julia's team doesn't know we have this. They're going to walk into that courtroom expecting to steamroll Greg with their prepared testimony. Let them, the prosecutor says. The more lies they tell under oath, the stronger our criminal case becomes. At 2 p.m., we walk into the courtroom. Julia's team is already there, looking confident and prepared. Julia sits at the plaintiff's table in a conservative blue suit, playing the role of the concerned wife to perfection. Eric is in the gallery, looking nervous. Tessa sits beside him, along with Dr. Patterson and Danny Walsh. They all look like they're attending a funeral. In a way, they are. Judge Harrison calls the hearing to order, and Julia's lawyer stands to present their case. For the next hour, I listen to a carefully constructed fiction about my mental deterioration, my violent tendencies, and my obsession with money and conspiracy theories. Patterson testifies about my paranoid delusions and increasingly erratic behavior. Tessa describes my threatening phone calls and aggressive confrontations with Julia. Danny Walsh presents his professional assessment of my psychological state. It's all very convincing. If I didn't know better, I'd think I was dangerous too. Then Rita stands up for our response. Your Honor, before we present our defense, I'd like to play a recording that was provided to us this morning by Mrs. Sarah Monroe. The prosecutor nods to the bailiff, who sets up the audio equipment. Julia's face goes pale as she realizes what's about to happen. The recording plays in the silent courtroom. Julia's voice, clear and cold, admitting to poisoning me, admitting to the conspiracy, admitting that everything she's told the court is a lie. When it ends, the silence is deafening. Judge Harrison looks at Julia with an expression of pure disgust. Mrs. Fallon, do you have anything to say about this recording? Julia's lawyer tries to object, but Julia stops him. She stands up slowly, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I see the real woman behind the mask. Your Honor, she says quietly, I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The courtroom erupts. Judge Harrison bangs his gavel for order, but it's too late. Julia's just admitted guilt in front of a room full of witnesses. This hearing is adjourned, Judge Harrison announces. The conservatorship petition is denied. Mr. Fallon, you have my apologies for what you've been put through. As the bailiff places Julia under arrest, she looks at me one last time. The mask is completely gone now. What I see in her eyes isn't anger or regret. It's pure hatred. This isn't over, she says as they lead her away in handcuffs. But she's wrong. It is over. Eric is arrested as he tries to leave the courtroom. Tessa is taken into custody for her role in the poisoning. Dr. Patterson and Danny Walsh are led away by federal agents. In the space of 2 hours, Julia's entire conspiracy has collapsed. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my kitchen reading the newspaper coverage of Julia's sentencing. 5 to 7 years for conspiracy to commit fraud. Eric got 3 to 5 for his cooperation. Tessa lost her nursing license and got 2 years probation. The house is quiet now, peaceful. I've had the locks changed, the surveillance equipment removed, and every trace of Julia's presence erased. My phone rings. It's Rita, calling with news about the civil suit. Julia's assets have been liquidated to pay restitution, she reports. You're getting back every penny you spent on legal fees, plus damages for pain and suffering. What about the inheritance? Still safely locked up in the trust, exactly where it belongs. After I hang up, I pour myself a cup of coffee and walk out to the back patio. It's a beautiful morning, and for the first time in months, I feel like I can actually enjoy it. Julia thought she could destroy me with lies and manipulation. She thought she could steal my inheritance and my life while I was too sedated and confused to fight back. She thought wrong. Some battles are won with strength. Some are won with intelligence, but the best battles are won by simply refusing to give up, no matter how dark things get. Julia learned that lesson the hard way, and I learned something too. Never underestimate a desperate person's capacity for evil, but also never underestimate the power of truth when it finally comes to light. The war is over. I won.